Good afternoon, and thank you for being here today for our third day of the seminar dedicated to the history and memory of the Topovske šupe concentration camp in Belgrade. During the first day, we had a discussion with the colleagues from Germany and elsewhere about the relationships between the camps and the cities. We talked about Topovske šupe and Sajmište in Belgrade, but we talked also about Buchenwald and Weimar and Dachau. During the second day, on Friday, we had a discussion with different guests from Italy, France, the Czech Republic, Croatia, and Serbia about the places of non-remembrance. It means about places where concentration camps were active during the Second World War, and then thanks to local initiatives during the last 20 years, something happened and they became from places of non-remembrance to place of remembrance. Today, this day is dedicated only to the Topovske šupe camp. We are now on the spot at the location, and we will have a short history lesson, let's say, about the history of the camp, about the Holocaust in Belgrade, and we will visit the locations. The visit is realized thanks also to the Delta company. The Delta company is the owner of the entire location, but they gave us the permission as without any problems to organize this visit. So the history of the Topovske šupe camp. The camp was established in August 41 and was active until December of the same year, 41. It was a camp for male Jews from the region of Banat and from Belgrade, and for male Roma from Belgrade. Of course, it was not the first step in the Holocaust in Serbia. We have to go back to April 41, means immediately to the days immediately after the German invasion of Yugoslavia. In Serbia, the Germans occupies established a special zone, occupied zone, and with the army at the head. But also the SS, Gestapo, and the other Nazi authorities were active here. Immediately after they arrived, they introduced the anti-Jewish and anti-Roma regulation. Already in April, during the first day, Jews, for example, they were forced to forced labor to clean the city from the ruins of the bombing, of the German bombing. And during the month of May, they were expelled from their works and they were forbidden to use, for example, the public transport, to go to the locals, to use the hospital, and so on. A special section of the Serbian police was also established. It was called the Police for Jews and then Police for Jews and Roma. And they had the duty to control the situation. At the end of May, it means less than 2 months after the arrival, the special law was established. It's called the law about the Jews and the Roma. Of course, then they didn't use the word Roma, but today we need to use the word Roma. And in this regulation, the position of the Jews and the Roma was definitively established. In this sense, for example, I will read something from this law. For example, Jew cannot be public servants. The removal from institution must be carried out by Serbian authorities immediately. Jews shall not be allowed to hold the practice of lawyer, doctors, dentists, veterinary, and pharmacists. For the purpose of repairing war-induced damage, Jews of both genders aged from 14 to 60 shall be sent to forced labor. And then Jews are not allowed to own educational or entertainment institutions or to be employees thereof, and so on. All radio sets and materials owned permanently or temporarily by the Jews must be immediately reported to the county command headquarters, and so on. Of course, during this period, Jews and Roma had to, for example, wear the yellow armband. At the end of this law, we can read that the same regulation, the following, all the articles of the regulation had to be applied also to the Roma population. I quote now, gypsies. Gypsies are made equal to Jews. Suitable provisions of the present regulation apply to them. And then a gypsy is considered to be a person who descends from at least 3 gypsies ancestors, and so on. Gypsies shall be marked by wearing armbands, which must be also yellow and bear the word gypsy, and so on. So we can say that at the end of May, the entire Jewish and Roma population was divided from the other citizens of Belgrade. This was one of the first steps. The second step was the registration of all the Roma and the Jews, and considering the Jewish community, they had to pay every week or every month high contribution in money to the German occupiers. Starting from July of 41, the situation dramatically changed. This because at the beginning of July, the Yugoslav Communist Party organized the insurrection here in Serbia. Immediately, the German authorities introduced retaliations against not only the partisans arrested, but also against the local population. First of all, against the Jews and the communists. This means that, for example, if you read the newspapers from July 41, you can read, for example, articles concerning the shooting of hostages and with the name of hostage. It was a kind of measure in order to also to make clear to the other population what could happen to them if they would join the partisans. At the same time, there was strong propaganda against the Jews and anti-Semitic propaganda against the Jews. At the end of July, the first mass shooting took place. On 29th of July, a group of 100 male Jews and 22 communists were shot in Jainci. There is one of the killing sites around Belgrade. At the beginning of the same month, in July, the local German authorities from the Banat region, it means the Volksdeutsche, the local German natives, they established the first camps for Jews. The local Jewish population, around 3,500 persons, were interned in these camps in Novi Bečej, Zrenjanin, Petrograd, Pančevo, and other cities. At the beginning of August of the same year, they were transferred to Belgrade in accord with the German authorities from Belgrade. And this was one of the reasons why the German authorities decided to establish this camp. They established the camp for the male population because the women and children, they had to stay at the homes and houses of the local Jews from Belgrade. But for the male, they established this camp. It was an attempt to control them and also to organize them for forced labor, and also to avoid that male Jews would join the partisans. So the first groups arrived here around the 15th of August. Every day they had to go out of the camp and to clean the city from the ruins of the bombing and for other works, forced labor. This was, let's say, the first group. Other groups arrived in September, also Jews from the Banat region. Then the first groups of the male Jews from Belgrade, and around the 15th of October, the entire male Jewish population from Belgrade was arrested and deported here. At the end of the same month, in October 41, also large groups of male Roma from Belgrade were arrested and here deported. We know that we can estimate the number of victims and the number of people who passed through the camp, about 5,000 Jews and 100 Roma. We can only estimate, we cannot be showed. What we know is that from the region of Banat and Belgrade, more than 85% pre-war Jewish population was completely destroyed. We don't have the numbers, figures concerning the Roma population, but we know that also many Roma were killed. When considering the number of the victims, they were not interned at the same time. It means they were interned in different groups. Usually in the camp, about 2,000 inmates were present. But the history of this camp and the history of the victims is very sad, and is a tragic history. But that is important not only for when we talk about the Holocaust in Serbia, but also when we talk about the Holocaust in Europe. The groups where Jews were carried out and taken out of the camp and killed in mass retaliations during September, October, November 41 in the killing sites around Belgrade. But I will talk about this later. Now I will show you the location. I will show you the buildings that were used for the inmates. Some of them are still here. We don't know exactly how many buildings were used. We're sure that the one building I'll show you, we know that the inmates were inside of this building. Unfortunately, the location is in a very, very bad situation. But we hope that something will change. We have a hope, because in this year the location became part of the law on the memorial Staro Sajmište. So probably this will be also part of the new memorial. So be careful, unfortunately, because as I said, in a very, very bad situation, we have to be careful. So as you can, and yeah, I don't have comment about the situation. We know about the life conditions of the inmates. Unfortunately, I have to say that we don't have many documents, but we have some testimonies, some letters, testimonies from survivors, testimonies from those who managed to escape, and testimonies from the families, from the women managed to survive the experience in the concentration camp of Sajmište. I'll read something about the condition. For some time, I was working outside the camp in the daytime, while at night I returned to the camp to sleep. In the beginning of October, there were roughly 1,500 people at the camp. The number was increasing constantly up until the 19th of October, when all the men from Belgrade were around 1,000 to 4,000 people at the camp. We lived at the barracks and in 3 to 4 stables. The rooms were so overcrowded that you could hardly lie down at night. People were lying down in hallways and paths left for passing through. Germans didn't give us any bed linings. All we got from them was straw, and it was insufficient. So this is a testimony of one person who survived, and that was interned in these buildings. Okay, let's move to another. As you can see, unfortunately, it's in a terrible condition. We can see also the others here. Thank you. Be careful. There is Okay, now we go outside and we can see the building from another perspective. Okay, let's go on. As I said, we have some testimonies from the inmates, because some of them managed to escape because I'm sorry, we have some technical problems. Okay, let's go on. We have some testimonies because some of the Jews managed to escape, because at that time there was the Jewish hospital was established. So some Jews ills, they were taken to that hospital in the city of Belgrade. And there was inside the hospital was a network of doctors connected to the partisans. So they managed to send this person, for example, to the partisan units. We have to say that concerning those who managed to escape and to survive, many of them, they did it. They managed because they joined the partisan forces, the Yugoslav partisan forces. Concerning the German authorities that was at the head of the camp, we don't know, unfortunately. We don't have many information. We did research. We researched it in the German archives and in the Serbian archives, but we found only some information. But we don't have, for example, the lists of the inmates or documents concerning the administration of the camp. So on one hand, we need to still research. On the other hand, I don't know if we will be able to find documents. So in this place, we can see the male Jewish population from Belgrade, from the Belgrade region, lived their days. Their last sight, they were all killed as a mass retaliation in the vicinity of Belgrade. It happened from September to November 41. In September, in middle September, the German authorities from Berlin, they introduced an incredibly terrifying measure of retaliation against the insurrection. It means that in Serbia, as well as the other parts of Europe, Southern Europe and Eastern Europe, where the insurrection took place, Southern Europe and Eastern Europe, where the insurrection took place, they had to kill, to shoot 100 hostages for every German soldier killed and 50 for every German soldier wounded. It means that, for example, the beginning of October, when the Yugoslav partisans attacked the German units near to the city of Topola and killed 21 German soldiers, immediately the German authorities from Belgrade, they ordered the shooting of 2,100 hostages. So it was the first one of the first mass shootings in that period. Half of the prisoners were taken from the camp of Shabbats, and the other half from this place. Other mass shootings took place in October and November in the vicinity of Belgrade. It means in Jabuka, in Jajinci, in Rakovica, in Bulan Potok, in Bežanja, and so on. If you want more information about this issue, you can find them at website killingsites.org. Because we mapped also these locations, and you can find also historical documents, photos in some cases, and information about these killing sites. The Jews, the Roma, were interned, and they had unfortunately the same destiny. They also were killed mainly in the field of in Yab, in the killing site of Yab. Concerning the mass shootings, we have some testimonies, but we have also two important documents produced by the German authorities. We have a report of one of these killings. The report was written by the Lieutenant Lippe of the German army. We have to underline that the mass shootings were carried out by the German army, not by the SS or the police, but mainly by the German Wehrmacht, the German army. We have these documents, and these documents talks about the two mass killings that happened on the 9th and on the 11th of October 41. It means that on exactly 79 years ago, on this day, on the 11th of October, one of these mass shootings took place. I'll read some parts of these documents. After detailed reconnaissance of the place and performance preparations, the first execution was carried out on the 9th of October 41. The detainees were brought from Belgrade camps, it means from this location, carrying the various necessities at 5:30 a.m. By handing out shovels and other tools, the impression of a community action was created. Each truck had just 3 guards, so that the number of guards wouldn't let on the true intention. The transport was completed without any difficulties. The mood of the detainees was good during the ride and preparation. They were glad to be leaving the camp, where the conditions apparently didn't suit their wishes. We set the detainees to work at 8 kilometers from the place of execution and then brought them in as needed. The place was secure enough for preparation and execution. The execution was carried out by way of power and at a distance of 12 meters. For each detainee, 5 gunmen were assigned. In addition, the doctor had at disposal 2 gunmen for cases in which he deemed it necessary, who would shoot the victims in the head, thereby causing sure death. Objects of value and remaining items were seized under supervision and later turned into the security police. On the day of 9th of October 41, 180 people were executed. The execution was completed at 6:30 p.m. There were no distinct events. Units returned home satisfied. The second execution could be not conducted before the 11th of October 41 due to repairs on the Danube ferry. Because of those works, the following execution had to be carried out in the vicinity of Belgrade. For that purpose, it was necessary to find a new place and double the caution. The following execution was carried out on the 11th of October 41, near to the shooting range. It went according to plan. 296 people were executed. During both executions, no detainee escaped, and the troops didn't record any particular events or incidents. For increasing security, another platoon was used from Major Pongruber units under the command of Lieutenant Howe. In total, on the 9th and 11th of October 41, those units shot 449 people. Unfortunately, those units were compelled, due to official reasons, to end further execution and transfer the assignment to Major Pongruber's unit, signed by a Lippe, lieutenant, and unit commander. So thanks to this report and to another one written by another lieutenant of the German army, the Lieutenant Walter, we know exactly in which way the execution were carried out. We have also testimony from the people, mainly Roma, who had to work also in order to bury the victims. As I said, also many Roma passed through the camp. They were Roma from the city of Beograd. They lived mainly in the surrounding of this camp. They were very poor. They lived in very bad conditions. It happened at the end of October. The German authorities ordered the arresting of the male Roma. It happened in the same way in the same way in different parts of the city. The German units, they had the duty to block this part of the city where Roma lived, and the Serbian collaborationist police had the duty to enter the houses and to take the male Romas. They told them usually that, for example, they would be taken to forced labor or to the police station and they would be back home immediately. But that this didn't happen. By using their trucks, they deported them here to the camp and they delivered them to the German authorities. We know that the Roma remained in the camp 3 or 4 days and they were immediately killed at the beginning of November. Thanks to the testimonies of the women, we know exactly, and we have the names of many Roma who passed through the camp. After these mass shootings, the last group of about 300 inmates Jews was moved from this camp to the new camp of Seinmeste that was formed at the beginning of December for Jewish women and children. And this was the last group of this camp. They would be killed together with their families, with the women and children in spring 42 by using the special gas. We know, as I said, also we have information about the Roma. This is also an important place for commemorative for the history of the Roma genocide. And I will read only the last some words about the condition of the Roma in this camp. When a certain number of Jews from the concentration camp were liquidated during the first days of November, they started bringing in by trucks large groups of gypsies from Belgrade and Serbia proper, allocating them to the places of liquidated Jews. Gypsies were grouped in a horse stable and one room on the upper floor, and there were about 1,000 of them. I remember there was Jews from Požarevac, Vranje, and other cities. However, the German camp guards often barged into the stable and rooms at night, taking wristwatches, fountain pens, money, and other items. They did so mostly while inebriated, while firing guns. It was a very frequent occurrence that the German camp guards got drunk at the Centar box, had orgies, and then, drunk and shooting their guns, assailed certain Jews. There were also occasional fights, beating of Jews, but they beat gypsies much more. We will now move to the last location of our visit, where there is the plaque put by the Federation of the Jewish communities of Serbia. There is the only sign that shows us that here a terrible Nazi camp was active and for many victims. As you can see, the webinar on Friday, the camp was in the heart of the city. So you can imagine, for example, also many houses around the cities, and that the life was more or less going on in a, let's say, normal way, pursuing the other citizens of Belgrade. They knew that there was a camp for Jews, and they knew that every day or every week they were taken in large groups, taken to other places. There were rumors, and they knew that they were shot. So this is the past. Between August and December 41, this site served as a Nazi concentration camp for Jews and Roma from Belgrade and Banat. All of them were imprisoned here, and several hundred were taken daily for execution by firing squad. Jewish community of Belgrade, May 2019. I have to say that before this plaque, another plaque was put here, I think 13 years ago, but the plaque was stolen because of the material. So only last year they decided to put another plaque. I showed you the unfortunately the situation of the camp, and you can see there is in a very bad condition, as you can see. I have to mention also that behind this wall there is a Roma settlement, and they live in a very unfortunately bad condition. They don't have water, they don't have energy, electric energy, so they live in the in a very terrible conditions. Concluding this visit, I have to also mention those who made possible this project, our project, Topovske šupe, Mapiranje Holokausta, preservation of the Topovske šupe camp. These are important organizations like the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, the Claims Conference, the Federation of the Jewish Communities of Serbia, and the German Embassy, the Embassy of the Federal Republic of Germany here in Belgrade. During our project, we will also publish a database with the name we have collected. We have collected about 2,000 names of the victims, and we hope that this could be one step for a permanent commemoration and remembrance of the victims. Now, before I introduce the following speakers, Helena, I would like to have 1 minute of silence for the victims. Piece. If you want more information about the camp, you can visit our website, topovskeshupe.rs. And you can follow us on Facebook and YouTube. Of course, the video of these videos will be available. Now, I'll give the floor to Helena. Helena has a very important and interesting story. She contacted us 2 or 3 months ago, and we started a discussion. And I thought that would be very important to have her story today, and to tell you the story. Not only the story of her family, that is a story connected to the Topovske šupe camp, but also a story of her work. She will tell you about that. About it, because I consider and I retain that her work is a very important thing for the schools in Germany, for the pupils in Germany, and we should do the same things also here and in other parts of Europe. So thank you for being with us. And now, Helena, please, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank you, Dr. Milovan Pisari, for the enriching exchange and for inviting me to be part of this great project. I apologize in advance for not speaking freely, but reading from my text, as I am not so fluent in English. I would like to tell you about my work on Holocaust education here in Germany. My mother never kept her family history secret to us and taught us how she witnessed the Holocaust. This was not self-evident because many other survivors did not talk about their experiences, and so the stories were suppressed by the memories of suffering. My mother also taught us about the time before the occupation in Yugoslavia, her beautiful childhood memories and the time after. I am very grateful to her for this. Outside familiar circles, however, she was not as open when it came to her origins. The reason was always fear of anti-Semitism. Often she was asked by people who learned about her story why she didn't write it down. Unfortunately, she never did. But when she started to become forgetful, I decided to write down many important points chronologically with her so that this experience would not be lost completely. After editing, we prepared them in form of a reading and picture presentation. It is a matter dear to our hearts to pass to these memories to our children and future generations, to help with the enlightenment so that further generations can understand what war and fascism means. Even if our family history is only one piece of this mosaic, the horrible death of all the victims must not be unseen. This is supposed to be a sign against forgetting, a sign for something that must never happen again. Now I will tell you how my children and I have prepared the presentation. Contemporary witnesses of the second generation for schools and other institutions. I tell the story from the perspective of my mother. It is in the I perspective. Today, however, my son Dennis is going to present a short version of it to you. Excerpts from Walter Manoszek's book Serbia is Jew-Free and from the catalogue of the exhibition Vernichtungskrieg, Verbrechen der Wehrmacht 41 bis 44 to describe political situation on these days will not be read out today because this history has been previously explained. I think this is a very important, special for the students, so that they can orientate themselves on political decisions which were made at the time. The book also describes, historically documented, how the Nazis carried out the murders of those imprisoned in the Topovske šupe and Zaimište concentration camps. Because this was done in secret without my family having seen or being informed about it. The students should already have studied the Holocaust in history lessons. Most of the pictures shown in the presentation are private family photos. All others I have used from the internet with an indication of the source. Classical music is played very quietly in the background. Also, music was a very important component for our family, and that way you can empathize a little with our family. The style of the music, Israeli music, changes when they arrived in Israel. It becomes more cheerful, like the story, a feel of alleviation, a sign of relief and hope for better times. In the same way, the music changes on arrival in Brazil. Happy with me. My name is Helena Balundema. I am reading this story in place of my mother, Olga Rotter-Ballon, who unfortunately passed away end of last year. Imagine an almost 90-year-old lady sitting here and telling you this story. This is the story. This is my story, Olga's story. But actually, this is the story of my mother, a woman who measured only 1.50 meters, but whose unbelievable energy gave her a size that was unique. Again and again, she found ways out of countless terrible situations. She was a great support for us children and always encouraged us to continue to live out our lives. She did not run with the wave or followed the current political ideology, but always remembered her own and human morality. Her name was Adelheid Rotter. Adelheid Rotter nee Stecher was born on November 27, 1897 in Veršec in Banat, which was then in Austria-Hungary, today Serbia. Her Catholic parents were Danube Swabians, a German minority. When Adelheid was 10 years old, her parents died. Her two younger sisters were adopted, but from then on, she grew up in a convent for orphans. My father, Otto Rotter, who belonged to the Jewish faith, was born on September 8, 1896 in Baja, then Austria-Hungary, now Hungary. His father died early, so his brother Ernest grew up with their mother Amalia. During the First World War, she was a soldier on Austria-Hungary side and served as a stenographer in the parliament. After the war, my parents met at their joint place of work, the Jewish company Deutsch, in what was then Petrovgrad, now Zrenjanin in Serbia. They married after 7 years, despite the resistance of my grandmother, who rejected my mother because she was not Jewish. My mother told me that a cousin of my grandmother warned her in a letter saying that if she continued opposing the marriage between both of them, that would mean the misfortune of her son. She then accepted the marriage between the two of them, partly because my mother converted to the Jewish faith in the marriage. Later, my father became an importer and an exporter of grain and founded his own company, which became very successful. They had 2 children, Paul on January 1927 and me, Olga, February 31. Our family, like other Jewish families, took part of social life. Everyone respected each other amicably. Religion played no role. In Petrovgrad, there was a synagogue at that time, and there was a choir laking. So my mother, who was very musical and could play violin, was asked if she could direct the choir. She did so for many years with great success and recognition from the Jewish. Mentioned the danger of war. Even then, my father was thinking of immigration to Palestine with the whole family, including my grandmother and uncle, as many Jews who had enough money did at the time. I can remember how horrified my mother was hearing Hitler's speeches, yet my father did not believe that it would be that bad. He couldn't imagine that Hitler's mad plans could ever become true. They often discussed because of it. In 1937, the ruling Prince Paul of Yugoslavia froze all accounts of the grain companies to finance Yugoslavia's armament to prepare for the approaching war. Today we know that he also collaborated with the Nazis. As a result, my father became insolvent and had to shut down his company. In 1938, we moved to Yugoslav's capital Belgrade, where my grandmother and uncle were already living. There my father found a job in an office. The threat to the Jews continued to grow, and in order to protect us, my parents decided to convert my brother and me from the Jewish faith to the Catholic faith. However, the original religion still remained on the document, so this measure did not mean definitive protection for us.
At this point, I read extracts from documentaries that describe the political situation in those days.
On April 6, 1941, the Nazis bombed Belgrade, so we fled to the countryside about 10 kilometers away from the city. When we returned days later, our house was completely destroyed and burned down. Back in Belgrade, my father had to register as a Jew and was now obliged to wear the yellow Jewish star on his arm. On the recommendation of my father and other Jewish friends, my mother had registered as a Volksdeutsche, a term coined by the Nazis, and was subsequently issued a German identity card. However, she did not feel comfortable with the status of Volksdeutsche, as she experienced how many other Danube Swabians identified and collaborated with Nazi politics.
At this point, I read from the book Serbia is Jew-Free, about the first measures and decrees against the Jews. Of the approximately 12,000 Jews living in Belgrade before the war, 9,145 reported to the Schutzpolizei. They were registered by the Gestapo.
I can still remember an incident when my father and I wanted to take the tram. A sign attached to the tram forbade Jews to get on. After my father read it, he simply said calmly to me, "Then we will just walk." Later, we stayed with Jewish friends who were preparing to flee to Hungary at that time. My father met another Jewish friend who was also preparing to flee to Hungary. He gave me the key to this furnished flat and offered our family to live there. I remember that my father took off the Star of David even before he was near the flat, so that he could enter the house unnoticed. Officially, Jews were no longer allowed to live in the flat. The registration of this flat and everything else was done in the name of my mother. They knew about the threatening living situation of the Jews, but they were not aware of what the future would bring. The racial policy was omnipresent. The Nazis claimed that it was scientifically proven that the superior human, the so-called master race, how they called themselves, was superior to other non-Aryan races, the so-called subhumans. These racist allegations lack any scientific basis and contradict the moral and ethical principles of humanity. But even my brother, being the son of a Jew and a German, asked my mother in his desperation at the time, what I am then, a subhuman or a superior human?
At this point, we report on forced labor and the deprivation of rights of the Jews.
At that time, Jews were obligated to clear the rubble from the streets. So were my father and my uncle. They were often harassed by the soldiers. I remember that one day my father came home dirty and injured, and my uncle's glasses were also broken. They told us that they had been beaten and thrown to the ground by soldiers. They said that they got up and went home without any further reactions. One day, several SS men rang our flat doorbell. They looked threatening and shouted at my mother, who had opened the door. Heil Hitler! This is a Jewish flat. It's getting rechristened. I was also in the flat and experienced this event with my own eyes and ears. My mother, this tiny woman, was not intimidated. She protested loudly and shouted in an offended tone, "What? How dare you insinuate such a thing to me? I am a Volksdeutsche." At the same time, she showed them her identity card, which identified her as ethnic German. The SS man believed my mother and then said goodbye with a Heil Hitler, turned around and left. That way, she defended us, her children, our home, and averted the suspicion that my father, my grandmother, my uncle, and other Jewish friends were hiding in our flat. On July 15th, 1941, my parents, who had always led a loving marriage, signed the papers for a divorce proceeding of their own accord at the Archbishop Marriage Court in Belgrade. As a reason, they state that my father did not care about the family. But the truth was that my father had always lovingly and responsibly cared for the family. They had only taken this measure in order to better protect us children. The wording on the papers read, Otto Rotter does not want to return to his wife and children under any circumstances. His lack of care has caused his wife and children the greatest emotional worries and pain. Even the material life of this family has been made more difficult as a result. Later, male Jews, including my father and uncle, were obligated to join the Topovske šupe collection camp. They did not know exactly what was going to happen, but hoped for the end of the war so that they could live freely again. One day, my brother, who was 14 at the time, and me, who was 10 years old, suggested to visit our father in this camp. Of course, our mother knew nothing about our plan. So we went to the entrance of the camp and talked to the guard, saying that we would like to see our imprisoned father. The soldier was almost euphoric and said to my brother, "I will let you in because you speak German so well." We were indeed allowed to go inside and saw the inmates standing in the yard in roll call. They were standing in front of 3 empty gallows. It was terrible. We would leave the oppressive fear in the air. My father saw us and came towards us as white as a sheet. I saw the fear in his reddened eyes, showing that he had cried before. They have already taken the 3 of them down from the gallows. One father tried to escape with his sons, and they were caught. They were hanged before all of us, he said. It was all so frightening, and of course we were very worried about our father and uncle. We always thought they would get out of here soon. We said goodbye to him and went back outside. I remember that there were visiting hours when my mother used to bring him food. But when we were there, there was no official visiting hours. On November 15th, 41, my father wrote a note to my mother from this concentration camp, which he gave to another inmate who was not yet to be transported with him. He was to hand it over to my mother during visiting hours. It said in Hungarian, "My dears, today we are taking the transport, but I don't know where we are going. I can only write a few words because we are leaving in half an hour. My dear, take care of our children and take care of yourself. If I can, I will leave a sign that I am alive. We are not allowed to take our luggage with us, so everything will stay with the association. I'm sure you can pick it up later. I am wearing 3 pairs of underwear. You can also ask Mrs. Teichner for my things. I wish you all the best and send you my best wishes. Otto, kisses for Mom. November 15th, 41, 8 a.m. On the other side of the paper, my watch is at Nandor Teichner's wife or at the Revés. You can pick it up there, my dear, for Mrs. Adela Rotter, Belgrade. That was finally his last sign of life. After that, we never heard anything from him or our uncle again. This letter shows the unknowledge of what would happen to them. My mother kept this piece of paper safely till the end of her life. It still exists today. A deep uncertainty was spreading that we were not even allowed to mention. The whole family always had the hope that they would return one day.
At this point, the mass execution and hostage-taking of Jews and Sinti and Roma is reported, led by General Franz Böhme.
Until the end of the war, my mother offered shelter to Jews and partisans who had to hide. But she was also aware that this meant a great risk for everyone. I remember that those seeking shelter had often not washed themselves for days before and often stank terribly. Because of that, my mother cooked their laundry. In 1942, my grandmother was also imprisoned together with all the other Jewish women and taken to the Zaimischste Zemun concentration camp. We never heard from her either again.
At this point, a report on the gassing and trucks of Jewish women from the Zaimischste concentration camp, also how they were thrown into pits. In August 1942, the head of the military administration in Serbia, SS Gruppenführer Harald Turner, proudly reported in a letter, "Serbia is the only country in which the Jewish and Roma question have been solved. They are completely liquidated. Serbia is free of Jews." The exact number of murdered Jews in Serbia is still unclear. The number of murdered male Jews is estimated at about 10,000, while the concentration camp in Zaimischste, where Roma and Sinti were also interned, is estimated at about 7,000. Of the 16,700 Jews in Banat in Serbia, 15,000 did not survive the war. In total, some 60,600 Yugoslav Jews, 30% died.
In order to further increase the protection of us half Jewish children, we were so that there was nothing standing about the Jewish religion of origin in the documents anymore. After the end of the war in 1945, the communists arrived in what was then Yugoslavia and took power. Many of them had been partisans in the war. One day, my mother was abducted by the militias because of her German origin. Desperately, she called out names of known partisans to them whom she had given shelter to during the war. She threatened them, saying that if these partisans found out that what they were doing to her, it would have terrible consequences for them. When they heard the names, they let my mother free. They realized that she was not on the side of the Nazis. As the threat to ethnic Germans continued to grow, in 1949, we used an opportunity to emigrate to Israel. To do so, however, we had to renounce the Yugoslavian nationality. In Israel, we lived first in tents and then in wooden huts in Rehovot and in Bukavir near Tel Aviv. As I had previously attended the music academy in Belgrade, I gave piano lessons and thus made a living. Although we had settled in overtime, we believed after 4 years that we would be able to go to Brazil, as an immigration country would have more opportunities. My mother and I emigrated by ship and reached Rio de Janeiro on November 15th, 1953. My brother, who was still serving in the military in Israel, also arrived about 2 or 3 months later to Brazil. I continued my career as a piano teacher and was successful doing that. We lived in São Paulo, where I married in 1961. My husband was Czech and had also been a refugee from the communist regime. We had 2 children, a son and a daughter. We were very happy in this country. My mother died at the age of almost 88 on October 1985 after such an eventful life. My family, 86. My husband died in 91. My brother Paul died in 2008. I have been living in Germany since 1997, so I could be with my children who for various reasons were already living in Germany. I have 5 grandchildren and they all live here in Germany. These are the memorials that will remind us of those terrible years. The Topovske šupe concentration camp, at the Jajinci Memorial Park, more than 80,000 Serbs, Jews, Roma, and other anti-fascists were executed in this area during the Second World War. Memorial of the victims of Zajmište concentration camp, Here are the entries of our family in Yad Vashem, the memorial of the martyrs and heroes of the state of Israel in the Holocaust. As we unfortunately did not find the names of my relatives in any of the lists of victims, so we added the information ourselves in 2012. Adelheid Rotter was a special woman. She endured the most difficult circumstances, and despite of all this, she never lost faith in a better future for those who find themselves in life-threatening situation. This was the story and fate of 3 victims of the Holocaust. Only 3, about 6 million, each with their own history. We want to give the victims of a criminal regimes a voice and back their dignity. These tragic histories must never be forgotten. The future needs remembrance. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Helena, very much for your presentation, and thank you for sharing with us the story of your family, but also the work you're doing in the schools, because I think that this is a very important thing, and I think that this should be done also in other countries, like here in Serbia. I think that yes, definitely this is an example we have to follow also here and in the surrounding countries. Thank you also to everyone who has followed us during this visit. I hope that we managed to give you some knowledge, some basic information about the history and the memory of the camp. And I hope that we managed also to at least raise awareness about the current situation of this place, and also about our work. On our website, you can find other information like documents, original documents, letters of the inmates. Soon a translation of English in English language will be available. You can find also some historical texts about the camp, some pictures, and also other things concerning our activities. There is also a public campaign we decided to launch. Is a campaign in order to raise awareness mostly among the local population, because during our work we found that we realized that also people who live here around the camp, they don't know nothing about the history of this place. So as part of our project, we will put an info panel here close to the street, connected of course to our website. We have the permission of the owner of this location, as well as the permission from the Institute for the Protection of Monuments of Belgrade. Thank you for the second time for being here this evening with us, and goodbye.